Hi there. I'm guessing if you're human, you've had an opportunity to bring up a difficult topic with a partner or friend. How do you navigate those difficult conversations? Do you come out with a forceful tone that might reveal anger or sadness and put the other person on the defense? Do you struggle feeling safe in those conversations and really showing your true feelings? Do you freeze and maybe just avoid it altogether? Do you want to work on these things and get to a point where you can easily have conversations and feel that you're heard, loved, and supported? Even better, do you want to be the person who's a safe place for others? A person who listens intently and shows the people in your life that you support and love them? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I know you're going to love the technique I'm teaching you today. In this video, we're going to discuss a powerful strategy that will allow you and the people in your life to feel cared for, listened to, and understood. If this is your first time meeting me, my name is Alana Palm, and I'm the founder of a ministry called Wake Up Joyful, which is dedicated to helping people who struggle with mental health to transform their mindset through encouragement, personal development, and biblical teachings so they can live a life of joy, confidence, courage, and freedom. A few weeks ago, my husband and I attended a marriage retreat at our church. This marriage course was part of a video series by a couple named Nikki and Scylla Lee. I've included a link to their marriage ministry in the description below. One of the big topics in this course was communication. When I heard this, I automatically thought, well, my husband and I are really good at communicating, so I'm not sure what they're going to tell us that we don't already know. I admit, it sounded a little haughty. However, one thing my husband and I have always been good at is communication, or at least I thought. That day, we learned a powerful technique that can help people in any type of relationship to communicate in a healthy, forward-moving way. And this technique can be used to talk through just about anything. Even though I believed in my heart that my husband and I had great communication skills, I realized that we avoided some of the more vulnerable topics. There are certain issues that are more difficult to talk about than others. Discussing things like sex, resentment, animosity, finances, or any insecurities can be tough, and it can bring up a lot of chaos. Being vulnerable isn't always easy, even with a friend or partner that we trust. We don't always know how the other person is going to react and receive what we have to say. There are a few different things that actually come up for us mentally and emotionally that cause us to shy away from bringing up difficult topics. I'll go through a few of these things. See if you recognize yourself in any of these. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to open up a can of worms. You'd rather just avoid it altogether. It's painful to talk about it. You don't know what reaction you're going to get. And maybe you have another fear or insecurity that comes up for you. The big question that we're going to talk about today and answer is, how do we communicate about something difficult with a friend or partner when we have so many trepidations or fears? And sometimes we don't actually know how to do it. First, we need to be aware of deeply engaged and reflective listening. We think it's natural to listen, but many people struggle with it. In order to have someone listen to you, you must understand how to listen first so you can essentially teach or guide them in their listening. We may truly want to listen to people when they speak. We might be pleading for someone to really listen to us. In both cases, even with the best intentions, people can experience listening roadblocks. Some of the roadblocks to engaged and reflective listening are being disengaged or distracted. When listening to someone, we can easily become distracted with our own thoughts. We hear them talk and it triggers a memory in us. So we go off into our own world, and in doing so, we disengage from really being with that person in front of us. Next thing is reassuring. The best way to listen is to be engaged and simply say nothing. It sounds counterintuitive, but we all want to be heard. When we jump in and tell someone that everything will be okay, it disregards the emotion around what they're feeling. Sometimes people just want to be heard. The next one is giving advice. We all want to help others, especially when someone we care about is in pain. As I just said, the best way to listen is to be completely engaged with the speaker and simply say nothing. When we give advice, we assume that we can solve the problem for them, and we don't take their experience, wants, and needs into consideration. We actually don't know what's best for people, only they do. We can help them discover it, but we should refrain from giving advice, especially unsolicited advice. The next thing is going off into a personal story. Have you ever poured your heart out to someone about a struggle, hoping that they would just listen and be with you in the pain? And they took everything you said and turned the spotlight on themselves and their issues or problem? They actually didn't give you and your plight the time and attention it needed because they shifted the conversation to themselves. Yes, I think we're all guilty of that one. The last one is interrupting. This one is my husband's personal favorite. His biggest pet peeve is people who constantly interrupt. You know the person who cuts you off when you aren't finished your thought, interjecting with his own story or wisecrack or comment? Yeah, that's what my husband loves most. So these are all detrimental listening habits that can be changed when we're aware of them. Many bad habits are easily fixed, but it requires the listener to be consciously aware of speaking out of turn, allowing their mind to wander, going off into their own story and trying to make it all better. Then, after they're aware of it, they need to strive to break those habits. One listening tool I use with people when I'm really on my listening game, which isn't always, but it's this. I wait 2 full seconds, as in 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, before saying anything back, just to make sure the speaker is complete on their thought. It's not a perfect system, but since I've been implementing this technique, it's shown me that very often people aren't actually done their thought. When we jump in at the first sign of a pause, we might miss out on valuable information. Sometimes it's hard to just allow that space, but becoming comfortable with silence is going to really serve you going forward when you want to become a good listener. So let's talk a little bit about engaged and reflective listening. This technique was introduced to me by a couple named Nikki and Scylla Lee, as I said. They run a marriage ministry, and you can find more information about them on their website, which I have put a link to in the description below. So engaged and reflective listening looks like the following. So first of all, it's facing the speaker fully with your face, your body, your feet, etc. So if I'm talking to you right now and I'm kind of turned this way, I'm not really giving you my full attention. It almost looks like I want to do something in this direction. However, I'm kind of paying attention to you here. So first thing is to turn yourself around, face the person, and really engage with them physically. The next one is eye contact, and I would say at least 80% of the time. So we don't want to stare at somebody the whole time they're talking because it just makes them uncomfortable. We can actually look at them most of the time, and obviously we would look away as it feels natural, but to be looking all over the place when someone's talking or distracted by something else that's going on, or we hear something outside and we look out the window, it just doesn't feel like the person's really with you. The next one is no immediate distractions. So things like kids or your phone or any other commitments. If you can just take away all the distractions and choose a time to talk when both people are really available, put the phones away, maybe the kids are in bed, and just take that time for the two of you to have that conversation. And the last one is refraining from the listening roadblocks that we talked about already. Some of those things you might do naturally that you want to break the habit of, like interrupting, being disengaged or distracted, going into your own story, things like that. So let's talk about the steps to engaged and reflective listening. So there are 5 steps. The first step is to put yourself in your partner's shoes. Step 2 is to acknowledge what they've said. Step 3 is to ask them what is the most important part of what they have said. 4 is help them work out what they would like to do. Help them work it out. Don't tell them. And number 5, ask, is there anything else that you'd like to add? And then we'll go on to the other steps that come after that. But those are the 5 main steps. So I'm going to take you through practicing the exercise, and then I'm going to go through an example. So first of all, you'd want to get together with someone you'd like to have a conversation with, right? Each of you chooses an issue that's currently upsetting or bothering you that you haven't really discussed recently. So because of this is a practice and you're doing this with someone close to you to practice this type of communication, instead of going deep into an issue right away, you might want to pick an area of concern where there has not already been a huge conflict. This will allow you to practice the technique without heightened emotions. The next thing is choosing a speaker. So the person speaking should hold a pen or a napkin or something to remind both people whose issue is being discussed. You could even pick up a stuffy off the floor if you have your kids' toys hanging around, but just something that the person can hold in their hand so it just visually helps both people remember who the actual speaker is. Then the speaker tells the listener about the issue and how they feel about it, not going on for too long. It's helpful too if the speaker uses I statements instead of you statements. During this time, the listener will practice reflective and engaged listening. The next step is the listener then asks, what is the most important aspect of what you are saying? The speaker responds, and the listener again practices engaged and reflective listening. The listener then asks, is there anything you would like, or if appropriate, like me or like us, to do about what you've just said? And again, the listener practices engaged and reflective listening while the speaker speaks and answers the question. Finally, the listener asks, is there anything more that you would like to say? The listener listens, practicing engaged and reflective listening again. So I wanted to unpack this a little bit more with an example. So I'm going to use an example of my husband and I talking. So first, my husband and I get together. We do it when our daughter is asleep and we don't have any other distractions. We put our phones away in the kitchen and maybe we sit in the family room. And we face each other. And I'm going to be the speaker. So I'm holding on to a paper napkin or a pen. My husband is going to practice engaged and reflective listening. Basically means he's paying attention, he's with me, and he's not saying anything until it's time for him to speak. So some of the things that the listener is going to make sure that he or she is doing is facing the speaker fully with their face, body, and feet, making eye contact at least 80% of the time if possible, and having no immediate distractions around. The other thing is just to refrain from those listening roadblocks that we talked about. So I'm going to bring up an issue that I feel is important that we maybe haven't talked about. So I say, honey, I'm struggling with my feeling that I do so much around the house and I have so little time for my own personal interests. I know you do a lot to help out, but I would really like some extra time to write and go to the gym on a more regular basis. So my husband stays engaged and he simply listens without saying anything. So when I'm finished that, he can say, what is the most important aspect of what you are saying? Then I explain, the most important part of what I'm saying is that I would like to work together to create some extra time for me to be out of the house a few times a week, just even for a few hours, so I can work out and write in silence. My husband says, is there anything you would like, or if appropriate, like me or like us, to do about what you've just said? Then he listens. I respond, yes, I would love it if you could choose a few nights a week when you could pick up our daughter and have dinner ready so I can have that alone time. My husband then asks, is there anything more that you would like to say? Then he listens. I reply, I think that's all I wanted to say. Now it's my husband's time to talk and share his feelings about what I've said. He has all the information and he can respond appropriately. If both people are committed to a healthy two-sided relationship, this would hopefully lead to some type of resolution. Once the first issue is complete, you can switch places and the listener can become the speaker, taking the pen or napkin and beginning the process again. At this point, my husband would get to share something that's been on his mind, something that's been bothering him. The first time would be great practice, and from then on, it could be used more in actual communication in a natural way. The steps may not always be perfect, but the closer you can get to using the supportive language and practicing engaged and reflective listening, the more likely you are to get to a healthy resolution. I realize that this technique might seem a little bit cheesy when you hear it kind of planned out or see it in writing, but I encourage you to try it out because it works. Even though my husband and I communicate well, this technique opened up a whole new way of relating to each other. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with the steps and practice them with someone you trust. I've actually included a link to a free downloadable guide below that will break down this technique into simple steps so you can use it right away. Once you feel comfortable with this technique, you can implement these steps in all your conversations, whether the other person is aware of what you're doing or not. I believe this will improve all the relationships in your life. I am sending lots of love and blessings your way. Have a great week. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to my channel. I release a new video every week answering questions and addressing issues that many of us have. See my other videos for more biblical wisdom and some encouragement on how you can improve and understand other areas of your life. Please see the links below for the free downloadable guide that goes with this video. You also get additional free resources and other information about Wake Up Joyful. See you soon.